Hey everyone, I'm incredibly sleep deprived right now, but that's not important because we just had a huge update on the Sonic channel, which is the Japanese website for all things Sonic, including a new history section showing off all past games, fan card creator with the Sonic Forces avatars, I guess, and most importantly, and the thing everyone's going nuts about, is a Sonic timeline, which is huge because Sonic's history has been a little messy over the past decade or so, and fans like me are always trying to logically put things together. What's canon, what's not, how does this work, what's this inconsistency here? So before getting into this, I just need to clarify that this is Japanese only. What we're seeing is translated, so there's no actual localization for this yet. And another thing to note on the Sonic channel, take things with a grain of salt because there are occasional inaccuracies or things that they change, update, remove, bring back, swap around. So just keep that in mind when we're going through some stuff. Fan card here, where I guess just like Sonic Forces. Don't I look great in the Amy dress? We'll give him a scouter for a Sonic character. What's my favorite Sonic title? I mean, come on, it's me. You already know the answer. Sonic Unleashed, Sonic World Adventure. What was my first experience with Sonic? I don't know. I don't remember what my first exposure to Sonic was. He's kind of always existed as long as I have. Just like Mario or Pikachu, and that's years before I even played a game for myself. What's your Sony Katsu? What do I like about Sonic? I mean, ideally, I'd pick all of these. There we go, that's me. That's D-Shany11. Okay. Sony Katsu was your favorite fan activity. Okay, that makes more sense. We're gonna check out characters real quick, because we have bios for everyone. This is an image, so it won't translate. Guess I'll get my phone out for that. Team Sonic, Sonic's alternate forms, faithful enemy, relatives, irreplaceable, I recognize my ability, we've been friends forever, people from another world that we trust, cute, I like, wow, you'll definitely do it, can rely on in times of need, I can never lose, a powerful enemy you must be careful of, super disturbing and cautious. Super disturbing and cautious, I guess. That's certainly a way to describe the Deadly Six. So here are all the characters that we have profiles for at the moment. What timeline are we living in where Werehog is being promoted? Sonic. The fastest hedgehog in history, able to run anywhere at the speed of sound. She loves it, doing what she likes. Another translation issue here. They're using both male and female pronouns. He believes that life is a series of events and adventures and live by his own rules rather than other rules or common sense of those around him. He always keeps his promises and never betrays his friends. He is honest about his own sense of justice. Normally, he's just a playful guy who remains calm no matter what trouble he's in, but when the moment dictates it, he shocks viewers with his intensity and sharpness, like a completely different person. Or Goku when he takes a fight seriously. Wonder how it translates Amy. I'm sorry. Emmy, as she's referred to in Japan. A kind and energetic hedgehog girl who will chase after Sonic anywhere once she sets her mind to it, day in and day out. She's a bright, cheerful person who never gives up no matter what the circumstances. She's also strong-willed and highly proactive. When the time comes, she'll pull out her beloved pick hammer out of nowhere and display power that puts any man to shame. She is also a single-minded and hard-working person who never stops working on improving herself in order to win Sonic's heart. Yeah, I'd say translation errors aside, that's a fairly accurate description. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but from what I can tell, they seem pretty much accurate. They just straight up refer to Rouge as a wild and sexy female bat. Here we have classic characters, and okay, that's very simplified. Looks like for the moment they've only got the characters from Sonic Superstars because of the 3D renders, plus Metal Sonic from Generations. Probably won't add other classic era characters until later, probably because they don't have 3D renders of characters like Mighty and Ray and the Chaotix. So here's history, where we have every game released. At least I'd hope it's every game released. Going through it, year by year. Yeah, we've got the Game Gear and Master System stuff. Got Sonic Spinball, even Chaotix. Yeah, it looks like everything is here. More info on Sonic 1. Brief overview of the story. Brief overview of the game itself and its significance in history. Released on the Mega Drive, Wii, 3DS, PS3, Xbox 360, Android, feature phone, iOS, Nintendo Switch. And it links us to the iOS and Switch version. And the Switch version is the Sega Ages release. That's interesting. I would have assumed it would push the Sonic Origins. G-Sonic. What is G-Sonic? I'm... Kids Gear. How have I never heard of this? Oh, it's Sonic Blast. Didn't know it was called that in Japan. Was the Game Gear just called the Kids Gear? No, the other Game Gear games are called Game Gear. And I know I have to cover this because people are freaking out about this. Sonic Spinball here, under the story, it mentions Planet Mobius. And everyone's like, Mobius is canon? The Freedom Fighters are returning! But this... calm your horses, everyone. This isn't new. This is the game's description and story from back then. The game was developed in the USA, and it featured characters from SatAM, because that was out at the time. So, nothing out of the ordinary there. Wait, released on Mega Drive, Wii, and iOS? When was this released on iOS? It really does have everything, because we've even got Sonic Chronicles, and they don't even like to acknowledge that exists. And this is interesting, they have Unleashed here twice for both the PS3 360 version and the Wii version. Does this include the PS2 version? No, it doesn't include the PS2 version. So, yeah, I was right. There will be some inaccuracies here. Maybe they'll fix them over time. Maybe they won't. Who knows? Okay, I didn't know that Japanese versions of Sonic Generations and Generations 3DS had two titles: White Space and Blue Adventure. Oh, and that's cool. They have all three versions on the banner. Okay, here's the part you've all been waiting for. Sonic World Story, or in other words, the timeline for the Sonic games continuity. Look at this, they have it divided into prehistory, tens of thousands of years ago, tens of thousands to thousands of years ago, thousands of years ago, 2,000 in numbers years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, classic era, modern era, and 200 years later. So for the timeline video I was writing, after Frontiers came out, and there was still a lot of things I couldn't really finish with this because I just needed a better understanding of things because a lot of the lore interweaves and intertwines. Yeah, it's similar to what I did, but a little different. I formatted it as prehistory, classic era, adventure era, Sonic 06 specific, and modern era. I don't think we needed all the different thousands of years ago, because it's still ambiguous lots of thousands of years ago. So in prehistory, just like the version I wrote, it starts with Sonic Unleashed because that's the history of Light Gaia and Dark Gaia, and they've existed since the planet itself was created, so that makes sense. Then we have Sonic Frontiers, and it's talking about the history of the ancients. That makes sense too. Tens of thousands of years, the first earliest recordings of Dark Gaia breaking apart the world and Light Gaia sealing it shut, and that's the Gaia manuscripts from Sonic Unleashed. So this is all the Babylon stuff from Sonic Riders, which I didn't even think to include. Thousands of years ago, we have the Echidna tribe is destroyed by the Wrath of Chaos, and what's interesting here, I wrote that the Master Emerald Shrine was created by the Echidnas to worship the Master Emerald, but turns out, back up here, the Master Emerald Shrine was actually built by the surviving ancients and their descendants, which... that's new. I guess the Master Emerald Shrine had nothing to do with the Echidnas. They're just neighbors. They just built their tribe and stuff just next door. it belongs to the Chow, that's why they live there. I guess I was always confused with the whole stealing the ultimate power when I thought, doesn't it already belong to you? But I sort of interpreted that as it's their sacred power that they've been entrusted to protect for generations, but Pakamakachakamakabarena decided, nah, we're keeping it for ourselves. We're using the power to take over everyone else. 2,000 years ago, the Black Arms drop a flying temple on Griffith on Earth. So Jason Griffith got crushed by a temple 2,000 years ago? Now, this is referring to the Glyphic Canyon and Sky Troops levels of Shadow the Hedgehog, because between those levels, the temple went from being settled in the ground to a flying airship fleet, and I don't remember the significance of that, or why it was important. After that, we have the creation of the Gizoids and Emerl from Sonic Battle. So now we're going to 50 years ago, with the Dark Pact between Black Doom and Gerald Robotnik, as well as all the other stuff happening on Ark, Emerl going wild, Project Shadow appearing too dangerous, an Eclipse cannon that can destroy a planet, all reasons for Gunn to think, okay, yeah, we're pulling funding, we're raiding the place, we'll blame Gerald Robotnik for that. So that's all this time period. 10 years ago, this is where it gets interesting, Sonic and Iris altered history. So, again, another translation of Elise. So 10 years before Sonic 06, Sonic and Elise go back in time to blow out the flame of Solaris, so it never existed, and none of the game's events take place, which also affects Silver's post-apocalyptic future, pretty much aborting that timeline entirely. I swear, I gotta finish Sonic 06 and make a video on how its timeline works. It makes sense to me, it makes sense to a lot of people, but it also doesn't make sense to a lot of others, because nothing's really clarified very well. Okay, so it also has the alternate scenario where the experiment fails, and Iblis is sealed, and all that stuff happens. After that, we go right into the classic Sonic era. And everything is how you expect. Sonic 1, Sonic CD, Sonic 2. Something to note is that the Game Gear games aren't here, and I should probably note right now, that doesn't mean they're not canon. I think any game that doesn't appear on this timeline are either inconsequential to the lore and the plot relevance and so on. Although I'd argue Sonic Triple Trouble should be, because supposedly that takes place between Sonic's campaign in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Knuckles' campaign in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It also introduces Fang, the return of Metal Sonic, and it's where Sonic and Knuckles actually make up after the events of Sonic 3, because they don't in that game. This one's controversial, but already confirmed like 2 years ago. Sonic Mania takes place after that, and as much as I hate mentioning it, after the game's events, classic Sonic is sent across time and space to Sonic Forces. But after that, he comes right back. We can pretend it doesn't happen. We'll just pretend he just shows up in Encore mode immediately after Sonic Mania. After that, Eggman invades North Star Islands and the events of Sonic Superstars. Moving on to the modern Sonic era, and... No. So it's including Sonic 4 Episode 1 and 2. So Sonic 4 was supposed to be the follow-up to the classic series, but that was before they brought back classic Sonic in Generations, and then they started making classic-style games again. All these games really do is retread Sonic 1 and 2. It says Eggman revives Metal Sonic and he launches the Death Egg Mark II, but the games don't really fit in the timeline, because after defeating Eggman, Sonic and Tails don't rescue Little Planet, they just leave it there in the Death Egg and the game ends. That was supposedly supposed to be in Episode 3, but it was cancelled. So we're just supposed to accept that Sonic... Maybe this is a mistake, maybe they're still figuring it out. I think the significance of putting it here is Eggman reviving Metal Sonic, but that's also inconsequential because Metal Sonic has already been brought back in Sonic Triple Trouble and Knuckles Chaotix. Speaking of, where is Chaotix? Chaotix isn't here. Okay. And some people argued Chaotix wasn't canon, but it has been confirmed canon by both Ian Flynn and TalesTube, so... Sonic Adventure, as expected. Sonic Shuffle, it has a story mode, so of course. Sonic Adventure 2. Oh, skip Sonic Advance altogether. Okay, so I guess... Alright, I'm guessing I'm right. Stuff not being on this timeline doesn't mean it isn't canon, just doesn't have a story influence, or maybe they didn't notice it. Like I said, things are a little shaky here, but that's par for the course with content on the Sonic channel, so maybe they'll update it, maybe they won't. So Sonic Advance 2 is where Cream is introduced, prior to Sonic Heroes, which is right here. And then... Oh, okay, we just skipped to Shadow the Hedgehog. But where's... That can't be right. So it just puts Shadow the Hedgehog in front of Sonic Battle, Sonic Advance 3, and Sonic Rush? That's so weird. So Sonic Battle is a weird one because it's an obscure game, but it has lore significance to both Shadow and Space Colony Arc, Gerald Robotnik, and Emerl. Emerl is kind of just retroactively added in here, but his story is still significant and adds to the Space Colony Arc stuff, as mentioned earlier. And it takes place... It should have came out right after Sonic Heroes, because game starts with Eggman discarding Emerl, and suspiciously, Metal Sonic has the exact same ability as Emerl, copying data and abilities from other characters, which I'm convinced is linked. I guess the reason they put Shadow the Hedgehog first is because Shadow has no memory of Gerald, Maria, and the Ark. Those topics do come up in Sonic Battle, but... It's a loose excuse because Shadow the Hedgehog, story-wise, it's very consistent everywhere. Characters say weird things that don't make sense, stuff doesn't add up, and we just kind of accept it, take on the important parts of the lore, and move on. So I guess this is what they're officially going with, but that shouldn't be first. Also, this is the first game with the 4Kids voice cast, and the end of the Adventure era. Both Sonic Battle and Sonic Advance still have Ryan Drummond in the Adventure cast. So Sonic Battle happens, and then Sonic Advance 3 happens after that. I haven't played Sonic Advance 3, but that's when Zimmerl is born, or Zimel, another poor translation of who is a rebuilt version of Emerl, but basically a new robot built by Eggman, who, after the game, starts living with Cream and Vanilla. And immediately afterwards, we have Sonic Rush! Have I ever talked about the fact I absolutely love this game, and it was technically the first Sonic game I've ever played? That takes place right after Sonic Advance 3. We see Cream and Vanilla's house again after the previous game. Yeah, we even see Tails' workshop from Mystic Ruins, as well as a gun base from not specifically the one from Sonic Adventure 2, but it's similar. And after this, we have Sonic 06. So again, they showed both scenarios, the altered timeline and the original timeline. So I guess they're still putting things in a straight line order of events. No splitting the line for the sake of the website's organization. We'll get to Generations in a minute. So Sonic 06 happens afterwards. But things are slightly different because history over the past 10 years is a little weird. And at the end of the game, going back in time... of Sonic and Elise, erases all these events from ever happening, and they're sort of trapped in a limbo, accessible by the Time Eater, with both Crisis City and Mephiles appearing in Sonic X Shadow Generations. After this, we have Sonic Riders, and Sonic Rush Adventure Riders, and right after that... Yeah, we're not seeing the Rivals games, which are pretty important because... If you exclude 06, that is the introduction to Silver. So yeah, we have Sonic Unleashed, all the Gaia stuff. Wait, we're going straight to Sonic. Oh, okay, so it's not including the storybook games as well. Okay. Secret rings should be somewhere around here, alongside Sonic Rivals, but I guess it's inconsequential. Nothing in that game's story has any bearing on the plot going forward. But I don't know. Sonic and the Black Knight should probably be here. I mean, nothing that happens in the game itself is consequential, but it follows up an optional dialogue in Sonic Unleashed, and there's constant callbacks throughout that game to things that are in the canon, so... Not to mention the events of Sonic and the Secret Rings is mentioned in Sonic Generations, so... Yeah, not including certain things, it's probably gonna confuse a few people, and I'm not looking forward to the argument saying, oh, this isn't in the Japanese timeline, it's not canon. It's like, dude, no, I don't want to even... I'm too tired to bother correcting you. Sonic Colors happens, and... Here we go with Sonic Generations, or Sonic X Shadow Generations, or both. Could have just used the old games thing for the main campaign, but yeah, Time Eater stuff happens. Sonic and friends are all pulled into the White Void, and everything else in there are pulled from different points in time, including Classic Sonic, pulled from years prior. Classic Sonic is basically the kid version of modern Sonic. My personal headcanon is we don't really have a period of time, like 10 years ago, 50 years ago, but I'm going by the logic that there's a time skip between the classic games and Sonic Adventure, where they age and become teenagers, and everything between Sonic Adventure and Sonic Generations takes place over the span of 5 years, because Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Advance 2, Sonic Heroes, they all take place in the same year, that's indisputable, but everything afterwards, clearly a lot of time passes, and it actually would make sense in canon if Sonic's officially 15 in Sonic Adventure, that would make him 20 in Sonic Generations, and Sonic Generations is all marketed as Sonic's 20th birthday, 20th anniversary for the game series. It would make sense that 20 years is also his actual birthday in the game, and 5 years is also a decent amount of time for Shadow to become integrated into living in present day after being released. Speaking of which, Shadow's story happens alongside, and then both of them conclude their adventures independently. Everyone comes back to the present, and Classic Sonic and Classic Tails head back to the past, which does not create a split in the timeline. Don't even bother saying, well, why doesn't modern Sonic remember this happening? Because this was written by Pontac and Graff. Just a story to fill in the cutscenes between levels. So in terms of Sonic Generations, don't think too much of it. Even in Sonic X Shadow Generations, Ian Flynn added a line from Tails saying the timeline will be restored once they go home, so we're not working on Back to the Future or Dragon Ball Z logic, we're sort of going with Doctor Who time travel logic here. After that is Free Riders. Why wasn't that before Sonic Colors? That's weird. Sonic Lost World happens, because of course it does. Oh, okay, it's not mentioning Team Sonic Racing here, but it is summing up its plot with King Dodonpa, and this takes place before Sonic Forces? Team Sonic Racing came out in 2019, before the restructuring of Sonic Team and the Lore Division and stuff, and... King Dodonpa comes from another planet where he's king of a car factory in space. You know, it's a silly spin-off game with a story to tie it together, but it just skips over and sidesteps a lot of things, like he can invite Blaze and Silver across the future and Soul dimensions. Also, Vector sends Charmy and SBO to do some research, and they learn about him being from space and stuff, but how the hell... you just can't go on Google, oh yeah, this guy, he's from space, like... He's from this planet where they have a history of such a... Why would anyone have that information? I know I'm overthinking it, and it's a simple Sonic story, but we don't just casually know what goes on in other galaxies and other planets and stuff. Like, we have the Black Arms, who are on the Black Comet that came by every 50 years, and we have the planets from Sonic Colors, but they're like tiny planets that were in Earth's orbit held together by Eggman's interstellar amusement park, so I can give the Planet Wisp stuff a pass. Why is Team Sonic Racing canon? Why is it mentioned in Sonic Frontiers? Oh, so many headaches with that one. Sonic Forces happens, Classic Sonic comes, then he goes back to his past, as if nothing happened. That sort of sidesteps the whole explanation that the classic characters' memories of Sonic Generations would fade away. I don't know. After this, the events of all the IDW stuff would happen, but we don't really know when abouts Sonic Frontiers ties into IDW, or if we've even caught up to that yet in our current place where we are in those comics. But afterwards, we have Sonic Frontiers. Oh, I'm so goddamn tired. We're almost there. 200 years later, the version of Silver's future before things were changed. For some reason, Blaze the Cat is there. Sonic 06 supposedly would have happened after Sonic Rush, where the modern characters know Blaze, but nobody seems to recognize her. She doesn't recognize any of them, and she's just retconned into being from the future, which henceforth will never be acknowledged again after this game. But after Sonic and Elise went back in time and changed this, it never happened, and the post-apocalyptic, Iblis-ridden world no longer exists, and Silver's future is peaceful, I guess? I mean, until the Ifrit stuff happens in Sonic Rival. That's the official Sonic timeline, and for the most part, yeah, this is good, this is accurate, but there's a few strange choices here. I mean, even with the Zelda timeline, every few years with new releases, they keep, this is here now, this is there now, we've changed our mind, this makes more sense. Think they might end up doing that with this timeline? It's hard to say for sure. The omission of all these other games that, I mean, not even Dream Team is here, but I guess, like I said before, that all the omissions are things that have no bearing on the plot and lore going forward, but for some reason they choose to add Sonic 4 Episode 1 and 2, which doesn't fit into the canon at all. And the significance in that game is Eggman builds the Death Egg Mark II around Little Planet, which is never freed after that game, and Metal Sonic is revived, even though Metal Sonic's already been rebuilt in Sonic Triple Trouble, possibly the same one in Chaotix, and again in Sonic Mania, so you know, this is why I do what I do. This is why I make videos talking about Sonic lore, trying to correct. I will never push my own headcanon as fact. I will only say, this is how I think things should work, or I think this can fit. Sometimes my headcanons line up with what actually happens, and it's pretty satisfying when they're confirmed, but I will always try to make sense of things based on the source material and what happens in them and what makes sense, and the official media is prone to change back and forth. This is probably not even finalized for the English release, if they even bother doing that, because a lot of things on Sonic Channel don't even get localized to English. Yeah, that was a lot to go over. I look forward to see how this progresses going forward. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, stay awesome, and I'm going to go to sleep now.